So, I don't know how this video will go or will it turn out or whatever, but how's it going, everyone? My name is Steven Dalhusen, and welcome to the Steven Dalhusen channel. So, I'm just going to show this right away. Like, I got this request from a buddy. It says, I feel like you should record a reaction. This dude literally reminds me of you. So, we are going to watch it today. We are going to watch this video by GC Vasquez? I'm pretty sure I got that wrong, but it's called You Don't Need to Finish Games. And I think the reason why they brought this up, like my buddy, is because I always talk about how I'm very bad at finishing a video game. I'm really bad at it. As much as I love games, I'm really bad at finishing them, and I'm trying to be better at it because I have so many video games. You can't really tell because of the way I have like my camera set up. I have a whole shelf here full of games. I have shelves there. I have a shelf there. I got digital games. Like, I have so many games. I have over 2,000 games. And I've only finished and completed like maybe 100 of them. So I want to do more when it comes to that. And I got a bunch of games on this thing too. It's a DS. I'm a Switch too. But anyways, let's just watch this video and see why this guy reminds my friend of me.
When I was a kid, we didn't have a lot of money to buy games, so we rented. We didn't have a lot of money to rent games often, so I'd conveniently forget to remind my parents about return dates, then get chewed out about late fees a couple of days later. The time constraints I had as a child when it came to playing games sparked a very early obsession with finishing them. Before the 5-day period was up, I had to beat that game.
Okay. Feel bad for the guy, not having a lot of money. I've been in that situation before, but I got into gaming when I was like 5 years old. I had like an N64, but I had like a decent amount of games to play too. So there was one game I beat constantly a lot, and I was Ocarina of Time. But yeah, no, I never had to rent. I was fortunate enough I was able to buy them, but
I needed to get all the secrets. I needed to make sure I could keep up with the kids at school. I couldn't lose to Lewis and his uncle at Nintendo, telling him how to unlock Dragon Kazooie. Cheating scumbag. High school was different. I didn't have a lot of money to buy games, so I pirated them. We didn't have a lot of bandwidth back then, so I'd conveniently pretend not to know why the internet was acting so slow, then get chewed out by my brother a few days later. The resource constraints...
the idea of pirating games. I used to pirate games too because I have all these games here, but I used to pirate them to kind of fit in. It was weird. I always used to pirate games to fit in. Like, I'd be like, oh yeah, no, I own that game. I do. And then realize I don't actually own the game. I just have a pirated copy of it, which is why ROMs and emulators were huge for me back in the day. Cause I'm like, oh yeah, no, I totally have that game, or I have this game, that game. And they would come over and I'd be playing it on my Wii, and they're like, yo, this was never on the Wii. I'm like, what? No, it's totally on the Wii. It's like out of here. I remember that. That was, yep.
Understanding of ethical pirating I had as a teenager when it came to playing games sparked
Fair.
an adolescent obsession with finishing them. Because any game would take a week to download, I had to beat that game. I needed to get all the secrets. I needed to make sure I was in the know with my friends at school and on Skype. I couldn't risk getting spoiled on the new Mass Effect or be the one person in the call everyone had to dance around spoilers for. I needed to make sure I was caught up so I could watch those videos on the games I wanted to play. I wanted to be included. I wanted to belong.
That's fair.
Was a super different story. I had money to buy games, and after an entire childhood of not being able to, took a victory lap through the 3 GameStops in my hometown. I didn't really leave a lot in my bank account those days, so I'd conveniently tell myself it was only another week until my next paycheck, and chewed myself out when the bills came around later.
I feel that. I feel that. I've done stuff like that. I've done it actually pretty recently too. I've been out of school for 6 years, but I've done that recently too. I think it was like 5 months ago I did that recently. I'm like, payday's coming around the corner, so I can splurge a little bit and buy more games. But the thing is, now I've made a deal with myself. I'm going to beat the games I have before I start buying and collecting more. That's the difference now with me on that one.
The buyer's remorse I had as a college kid sparked a deep-seated obsession with finishing games. I bought these games, and I needed to squeeze every dollar out of them. Because they burned a huge hole in my wallet, I had to beat those games. I needed to
Fair.
make sure I didn't spend my money for no reason. I couldn't bear to look at my shelf of games and see this huge backlog of frivolous spending. I couldn't stand the idea of my friends making fun of me for it.
So, little side tangent there. I'm going to switch over here. So, I actually, like, my friends never made fun of me for it. My buddies are actually kind of, I've had a friend actually tell me he's kind of jealous. He wants to start doing something like this, like collecting more and more games. Now that I'm bigger screen, you can see the shelf of all my PlayStation games there. My Xbox and Wii game and Nintendo games all over here. But, like, the whole idea of looking at these games and, like, I've bought or whatever, I'm just going to grab, like, 3 off the shelf here, just as a prime example. I used to have a subscription service called Video Game Monthly where I'd get 10 games every month, and I did make videos on them. I do plan to get back to that one day. I'm kind of in the saving for a house and a wedding, so basically once I've gotten those payments and everything all done, like I have my own house, and once I'm married, I'll probably go back to that, because then I'll be able to actually spend a little more, because I won't have to make big, massive thousands of dollar purchase. But we got like 3 games here, still in the packaging. I got these in my Video Game Monthly Christmas box. We are in June. I have yet to actually touch these. To be fair, I do feel really bad as I kind of look at my shelf of Xbox One games. I've only really played Forza on my Xbox One. I've played Halo a little bit here and there, but I've only been really playing Forza on my Xbox One. Because that's, as far as I'm aware, Halo and Forza are the only reason the Xbox exists. So there is that. But
I wanted to validate myself. I wanted to prove my purchases had a purpose. Oh, but doing
Fair.
YouTube videos, incredibly different situation. I had money, I had drive, I had passion. I wanted to talk about all kinds of thoughts and opinions I had on games. I didn't have a...
That is actually one of the reasons why I got into streaming and YouTube content, and what caused me to want to make, like, have a bunch of video games too, is to make videos on them. I used to, there was a time where I would buy a game and I would literally look at it and go, I'm buying this because I can make a good content on it, or I'm buying this because it would make for a good Let's Play, or things like that for YouTube. And I never actually bought it. There was a time where I bought games not out of enjoyment, but because of I wanted to make videos on them. And I wanted to also establish that when I became a content creator, that I was going to make content, variety content. I wasn't going to be like, you know, just only a Fortnite streamer or a Call of Duty streamer. I was going to make variety of content.
a lot of time on my hands, so I'd conveniently forget to do my homework and ignore my regimen, then self-destruct later. The desperate need for approval.
I wish I had the. I mean, I wasn't a smart kid. I'm not really a smart kid, but like I'd get like my homework and stuff done. But the mental self-deprecation would happen and cause me not to play a game, which is also somewhat crap too. But
sparked a consuming obsession with finishing games. Before I could talk about it in a thoughtful, powerful way, I had to beat that game. I needed to scour for every detail. I needed to make my writing so airtight, so on the mark, no one was going to make fun of me. I had to stay ahead of the curve to be the trendsetter I wanted to be. And year after year, with every failure to accomplish what I had set out to do at every stage of my life playing these games, my obsession would turn to guilt. Because if I didn't finish the game, what was the point of spending all this time on it? The money, the bandwidth, the denial. How could I run a successful YouTube channel if I wasn't covering the newest game within a week of it coming out?
so the guilt part I can see. That is definitely me. I have like told there's been. I'm trying to think of like a prime example. There's been one game in particular. I think it was Rage 2. I enjoyed it, but I did get to a point where I'm like, I just want to finish this game for the sake of finishing it. Like, I was enjoying my time with Rage, but kind of getting bored of it. But then I looked and I'm like, I'm 80% done the story. I might as well just finish the last 20%. So I have beaten Rage 2. I probably will go back at some point. It was an okay game. I did really enjoy it. But a lot of these games I play and then I just... But the guilt for me comes from I play the game, I super enjoy the game, and I want to play it, but then I get home from work and just am too tired. Because something that maybe most of you here don't. Whoa. I'm gonna sub to this guy live. There you go. Ta-da. Something that like I don't know how to like word it properly. I guess I wish I could word it better. Oh yeah, some of you guys don't really know is I work like 12, 13 hours a day, so I come home and don't really want to play many games. Or a big thing too was just there's been like some stuff behind why I don't finish or even play games. Like I have a few games. That's gonna be for a different video. I might put that on the golden channel because this is not going on the golden channel. But yeah, no, there's been a few games that I've like sat down and wanted to play, but then never actually got to play in them. Or there's just some circumstances behind something that just made me not want to play them, if that makes sense too. But as for the Run a Successful YouTube channel, if I wasn't covering the newest game within a week of it coming out, I don't cover newer games. Honestly, it's very rare I buy games on release. Actually, Tears of the Kingdom, I've been playing it. I actually put it away because I've been playing through like 4 other games and wanted to finish them first before I got into Tears of the Kingdom. And like so many new games coming out that I don't really talk about. And I've tried to do a lot of more retro games, like because I'm trying to play through retro games. I don't know. I'm just another thing that I have a problem with too is I go back to play a lot of games that I've already played through or just don't have an end, like GTA Online, Call of Duty, technically NHL. Like I'm playing a lot of NHL 23. That technically doesn't have an end to it. But yeah.
The newest game within a week of it coming out. How could I call myself a fan of these series or talk to my friends about games if I never finished them? How could I justify the thousands of dollars I'd spent on my digital library if I hadn't touched more than half of it? What was the point? What was my motive? Why can't I stop feeling this way? So eventually,
Fair.
one existential crisis after another, you start learning a lot about yourself. The differences
true.
between
Yep.
who you are naturally and external factors contributing to who you've become. I've done a lot of thinking, figured some of it out. If you've ever experienced something like those scenarios from my own life, I have something important to tell you. You don't need to finish that game. Game completion is so obsessed about nowadays. People gatekeep and invalidate each other's opinions based on how far they made it while playing them. Being up to date on a long-running series seems to be more important than caring about its trajectory, its quality, and the conditions it was made in. People are so afraid of missing out on the real impact of a sequel, they'll prevent themselves from playing it until they beat the games leading up to it.
I kind of want to touch on that part about the sequel and beating games leading up to it part. A lot of games actually might have sequels, but there's nothing like connected in them at all. Let's take Xenoblade for example. I'm playing through Xenoblade Chronicles 1 because I've actually wanted to play the game for a while. I do have 2 and 3. It's a story behind 2, which I'm not going to get into. That's for another video. But none of them are connected, except for Xenoblade 3 has a DLC that connects all of them. But you could even play through the DLC for 3 without even having played 1 or 2. So a lot of games are like sequels, but then don't actually have any connection to the story whatsoever. Like the Zelda games, you could honestly play. You could start with any Zelda. Like literally, Tears of the Kingdom could be your first Zelda game, and you could like know the story easily. Like even though it is a direct sequel of Breath of the Wild, you can play Tears of the Kingdom standalone and have full knowledge of what's going on in the world and the environment. And that's one thing I love about those kind of games. But yeah, no, that's fair.
Part of the wave, we're insistent on buying the new thing and beating it as fast as possible so that we're riding at the very top. And the truth is, this is a reality we didn't necessarily force ourselves into. It's not the nature of recreation. It's the nature of business. I get the feeling my childhood wasn't unique. Even if you didn't rent games, I'm willing to bet your parents or whoever bought you video games weren't gung-ho about it. Even if they loved games themselves, they were also hopefully thinking about other aspects of your development, so what you had to play was what you had to play. From a very young age, we're taught video games need to be finished before we deserve to have another one. Or, in the case of renting, there's a finite amount of time we have.
let's go back to that part. I do have closed captions on to kind of make it like easier to read. I usually don't have these on, but we learn from a very young age.
From a very young age, we're
taught video games
need to be
finished
before we deserve to have another one.
That's kind of something I resonate with, because I have this bad problem of playing through a game and then just starting a new one right away. Just that's why I have so many unfinished games, and like 3 of the games I want to beat before the end of the year are all JRPGs. They're all 100+ hour JRPGs. Xenoblade Chronicles, Harvestella, and Octopath Traveler 2. So I gotta like pour hours into them, and then I also want to beat Tears of the Kingdom as well. But I mean, yeah, and then I want to beat Octopath Traveler 1 so I can play Octopath Traveler 2, beat Xenoblade 1, and then kind of go into the rest of the series. So I kind of see where this guy's coming from, honestly. But
or in the case of renting, there's a finite amount of time we have with this game, and our limited understanding is we may never see it again when the time is up. It's probably why kids are so good at video games. Beating games was our job, and by doing it well, we'd be rewarded with more of them. And school was where we could show our efforts off. Knowing more about a video game than someone else when you're 10 years old is like being Christ reborn in the minds of other children.
I wish it was like that for me. I was mocked for playing video games. That's the sad part. I was mocked for it.
It makes you the center of attention for a week until the rest of them catch up to you and you raise them onto Mount Olympus, welcoming them as your fellow gods. The nice lesson our parents were teaching us about valuing our possessions also reinforced this idea we were getting at school that beating games was cool. Like Sunny D in the fridge and McDonald's every day cool. If there's one thing I know the games industry is good at, it's finding ways to turn children and teens into loyal consumers. In the late 90s, early aughts when I was a kid, and yes, I am nearly 30, looks can be deceiving, game companies were already capitalizing on the way I played games. Games with obtuse progression, games with secret levels and new things to discover, and games too big to finish in a rental period were their bread and butter. These were ways to keep players renting or convince them to just buy, and the mascot generation did a lot to get kids to beg their parents to buy them the new Crash Bandicoot or the new Spyro or the next Banjo-Tooie, and no, I don't want to rent it, I know I'm going to like it. But what I don't think they expected was for the kids to dangle what they knew in front of each other's faces, to use the fact they had games and knew a lot about them as a form of social status. Or maybe they did.
Oh. Nintendo is social status. This probably just gets into the whole bread and butter of, like, you don't really need to finish games. Like, this is going to be a long video, I'm already seeing, but...
Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3 kids. You'd think people would grow out of those childlike conceptions, but teenage adolescence has a funny way of making us feel a lot smarter without doing much of anything.
Okay, so I think the other half of this video is just him talking about now. It's money wasted. Oh, I thought you pay money.
Played it. You enjoyed something until you were tired of it. That's normal. No one expects you to cash optim.
Oh, hang on. Let's go back a little more.
That not playing the same games as your
Oh, sorry, I'm going back a little bit here. I didn't realize it was
a lot smarter without doing much of anything different. As we got older, the words used may have changed, but it was the same dynamic. My teenage years were when the console wars became a monolith. The advent of the internet paired with
the console. Oh boy.
Of all time really brought it out of people. Well, game companies learning about internet marketing really brought it out of people. And whether or not you were a willing participant, you were in it. Most of us only had one current-gen console, an Xbox 360 or a PS3, and the Wii probably. If you had all three, chances are you were an outlier.
Playing that game right now. Good old Xenoblade Chronicles 1. See, yeah. Oh, I'm so...
there's something people are
The
doing
game
that
has
you
been
don't have
awesome,
access to,
honestly.
you
Xenoblade
start to feel like
Chronicle
you're
is
missing out.
amazing.
You lose the sense of belonging in your social circles when all of your friends are talking about a game you haven't played yet, or when everyone's getting on Xbox Live to play Gears 3's Horde mode, but you don't have it. Online multiplayer itself feels like this distant place where everyone else is having a new kind of fun you can't afford to maintain. Sometimes it was so integral to the stability of your friendships that not playing the same games as your friends meant you weren't hanging out with them anymore. Not on purpose, just by circumstance. It might not
Fair.
seem like this was all about beating the game per se, but remember where these feelings developed from? This panic, you lose your credibility if you didn't know what happens, this desire to be included in what was being talked about. Video games were a fad, and the internet shortened the lifespan of how long those fads would be in style. If you didn't beat Red Dead Redemption in the 2 weeks it came out, your friends were already moving on to something else. Your window for
Fair.
being included in a discussion closed. It wasn't in the
Fair.
fairy tale high school bully kind of way, but beating games had gone from making you cool to being accepted. Is it hard to believe the industry would capitalize on its biggest demographics' worst anxiety? Limited editions, pre-order bonuses, DLCs extending the story, or in some cases providing the ending to the base game story. Online functions,
Yeah,
monthly
fair.
premium, season passes guaranteeing you won't miss out on future developments, utilizing underhanded methods of making pre-owned copies of games impossible to use. It became harder and harder to keep up with the rest of the community if you weren't buying the new release and tunneling through it for the sake of being part of it. Even now, feeling like I'm missing out on a game my friends love convinces me to buy games without a second thought, compounding into a sunk cost fallacy I've built up since high school. I think there's a scientific study waiting to
That part there.
convinces me to buy games without a second thought.
I mean, no, nowadays I'm actually gotten better at that. Like, I know a buddy of mine's been trying to convince me to buy Red Dead Redemption 2, but I don't want it because I wasn't a huge fan of the first one. So, I mean, there is that, but
Sunk cost fallacy I've built up since high school. I think there's a scientific study waiting to prove video game backlogs begin at around the same time a video game enthusiast gets their first job. And maybe you want to make it up to your younger self and fulfill a desire which was never indulged. Maybe you're like me and bought every game you pirated as a kid to justify your own conscience. Or maybe, like
yeah, that's fair.
you practice retail therapy and get yourself something you like when you're going through a rough time. Then you realize you've spent hundreds or thousands of dollars on a huge list of games you kept assuring yourself you'd definitely play. And so your backlog and the sunk cost fallacy attached to it is born. Beating games isn't your job anymore, though. Playing games is what you do in your free time or in between class and work. In other words,
Yeah.
you can't devote an entire week to them without taking a few days off from, well, everything. But
That's
what's the
fair.
point of buying and playing games if you don't beat them, right? It's like losing out on an investment or something. Because that's totally what I'm doing. A game is an investment, I think. Because if I beat it, I can move on to the next one. If you ask me, the presence of a backlog implies we've never grown out of our childhood habits. We've found ways to add importance to something which should have never mattered in the first place. Our money-driven society taught us to play games, we have to beat games. Once we start to understand how expensive our hobby is, suddenly we're measuring cost versus experience and seeking to maximize our profits by milking the game for everything it's worth. And if we don't, well, that's our fault. We made a bad investment, something didn't hold us long enough, and now it's money wasted. It's not, though. You paid money to play a game, and you played it. You enjoyed something until you were tired of it. That's normal. No one expects you to cash optimize how you go bowling, and quite frankly, I'll crack you over the head with my ball if you try to rush me. And likewise, there shouldn't be an expectation to beat a game just because you spent money on it. Yet, some of us still push through a game we don't like and feel awful doing it just to knock it off the list. You better believe the industry took advantage of this mindset too. The last decade...
That last little bit. Pushing through a game we don't like and feeling awful doing it, just knock it off our list. I used to be like that. There's a lot of games that I don't actually have. Like a lot of big popular games I don't actually have. The Dark Souls series is one of them. Mass Effect series. I mean, I own Mass Effect 2 for some weird reason. But there's a lot of big game series that I don't see the joy, like the appeal. I don't see the appeal for it. But I've done it before with games where I'm like, I gotta play this just to knock it off my list, even though I don't like it. Which has caused me to change my perspective on a lot of games. I'm trying to think of like one off the top of my head. What was it? Oh, it was Pokemon Sword and Shield. That's what it was. I wasn't a huge fan of it. I mean, I like Pokemon Sword and Shield now. Like, I kind of have a newfound love for it. But at the time, I was just playing through it to get through it. And I used to play through games, and recently I've been struggling with that, actually. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Like, I've been kind of enjoying it. I've just kind of been burnt out of Pokemon, but I'm kind of rushing through it because I have Pokemon Scarlet, and the legendary from Scarlet is the last Pokemon my fiance needs to finish her Pokedex, so she wants me to beat the game. But I don't know. Yeah, no, it's just the idea of playing a game that you don't like finishing it, it's kind of something that I have been slowly leaning away from, which I've actually been very, very happy with. But, you know, I'm glad now I'm actually playing games I really like and enjoy. I'm not playing them for the sake of playing them. There is a little something I'll talk about near the end of it, but
Has been 10 years of re-releasing old
we're what,
games,
13 minutes in?
monthly subscriptions for instant access to your very own backlog, and massive sales to drive up purchases. It's seen games as a service become a popular way of keeping players invested and begrudgingly getting through bad content to get to new content. It's seen digital storefronts compete with launch window discounts and the growth of the sketchy gray market where people can make haphazard additions to their libraries. It's seen game design philosophy change to cater to a completionist mindset and focus on keeping players busy long enough to void refund periods. It's required the redefinition of a refund to protect consumers in however small a way it does. The pride, the need for acceptance, and now a misplaced urge to be responsible. We've attached so many odd values to an insignificant part of playing games the industry has, with every breath reinforced and ingrained into the culture of gaming. God, I hate that I just said that itself. But playing games isn't about increasing our net worth, literally or figuratively. Playing games is supposed to be a relaxing or invigorating experience for however long it remains so. If a 200-hour RPG doesn't keep me invested for its entire length, that's fine. Maybe it says something about how I feel towards the game itself, but not me. It doesn't make me that kind of person. Finishing a game isn't even important to understanding it. Most of us walk away from playing a video game saying more about how we felt playing it than about the ending itself. And sometimes games we play don't make us feel anything. They don't have to. There's no guarantee they will, and finishing them won't change that. Now that we're older, does it really matter if you know every secret or cool fact about a game? Or is acting like an 8-year-old and correcting someone on some anecdotal piece of trivia not the most annoying thing to do in the world? Isn't it easy to have a conversation with our friends about games despite the disparity in our playtimes? Haven't you wanted to sock someone in the mouth for invalidating you based on how much time you've put into something? Aren't you fully aware
I wanted to do that.
You'll be able to play every game in existence and lead healthy, functional lives at the same time?
Yes.
So why do we still give so much reverence to such a small part of our hobby which has bred such awful rhetoric? Why do we let unethical industry practice and child-focused marketing push us to treat every purchase as a lifelong commitment? Why do we stress it? Let it go. Play until you're satisfied. And don't feel bad about not finishing it. It served its purpose. We've forgotten the primary purpose of playing games is to play them. It's not to subscribe to a fictional world for the rest of our lives. It doesn't come with the price tag of needing to interact with every piece of media it's related to. Another industry practice, great for quantity of content related to something you like, but built entirely on strategies to drive invested players towards being guaranteed buyers. We're cautious of spoilers for games we picked up once months ago, played for 2 hours, and keep telling ourselves we'll go back to someday. As if we owe it to ourselves to avoid being part of the community around those games until we know enough about it. And in the same breath, we stress how important it is not to gatekeep each other no matter how comprehensively we know a specific piece of media. Listen to how silly we sound. We can't talk about something or look at anything about it because we played it a couple times and really want to try it again someday, and even though we're super interested but don't have the time or really the desire to go back to it at the moment, we won't let ourselves indulge in said thing in other ways we want to right now. What kind of weird, self-inflicted punishment have we invented for ourselves? What exactly are we afraid of? Being someone who talks and thinks a lot about this stuff for the sake of making videos, you'd assume I'm acting like I've liberated myself from the clutches of nefarious marketing strategies and toxic gaming culture. Not true. My need to beat games is the worst it's ever been. Can you imagine making a 2-hour story analysis of a game and not getting to the end? Or if someone in your comments wanted to have a discussion with you and you had to clarify you never finished whatever it was?
I'm in the same boat of wanting to finish games. I mean, here's the problem, actually. It's a little worse than that for me. I've wanted to finish games, but I felt like I'm not able to play them or do them unless I'm making content on them. That's the one thing I've been struggling with, is trying to play and finish a game in my free time. Like, actually being like, I'm not making any content on this game. I'm literally sitting down to play it. That's it. So, like, anytime I play a multiplayer game with my friends, sometimes I toy with the idea of recording it or streaming it. Every time I'm sitting there and playing a game, I'll play it for, like, an hour and then be like, Steven, you should be recording this or streaming it. Like, I have thrown myself into the void of, I need to be making content on this game. Otherwise, there's no point in playing the game. I have voided myself of actually having fun playing games. That's what sucks the most, is I've avoided myself from having fun and claiming I need to beat them in order just to make content on them.
Was you were talking about? The stigma exists whether or not you adhere to it, and I know plenty of people who won't start on a video until they get to the end of the subject matter. The way I play games for videos is the same way I play them for fun. I'd be having this conversation with myself or a friend if YouTube didn't exist. And actually, in the process of making this specific video, I have talked about it with a friend or two. That's actually how I got started. A friend of mine told me I should just write down how I feel about games and then put it online. It's a ton of fun, but it's different now that my visibility is approaching a considerable milestone. Imposter syndrome.
I'm the same way with this guy. I want to write down how I feel about games and put them online. And I've been doing that mainly. I called it the spoiler cast because I've been doing it about games that I've beaten and finished. But I have been toying with the idea of maybe being like, hey, I really did enjoy this game. I only got about 50% through the game, and then it kind of started dying down for me, and I don't right now feel the need to finish it. But I know that people don't really want to watch those kind of videos. I want to watch the videos of, I played through the game. There were some parts I didn't like, some parts I loved, and that's the end of that. There's a lot of games. I have a list of Spoilercast episodes to make, and the list goes on from games I beat like 2 years ago to now, so I have to try to remember them, and some of them I've just gone back and played through them again quickly to be like, okay, I remember playing through this game, I remember playing through that game, this, that, like, it's I'm the same way, you know. I want to break down how I feel about a game, but I have to beat the game first.
Syndrome is kicking it alive. I don't want to be off base with my analysis or miss something in my retrospectives. I don't want to end up with the worst take on the internet and get laughed at behind closed doors. Or
You don't have to worry about that, my good friend, because I exist. I'm here. I have the worst takes ever, and I've been told that. A big example of this is I've done a... Big example... Okay, good. Sorry. A big example of this is I've done, like, these things. There's, like, these bracket challenges where you choose, like, the best games from a TikTok. It's a TikTok filter, and I've done it before, and I've had everyone be like, you're the worst gamer ever because you chose, like, this game over that. I think one of them I had Forza Horizon 3 was the winners. I can't believe you chose Forza Horizon over BioShock. Because, like, I've never played BioShock. That's why. I've played through Forza, but I've never played BioShock. Or I've played, like, 10 minutes of BioShock and then just never really clicked with the game and never got around to finishing it, despite the fact that I own BioShock 1, 2, and Infinite, or I just own BioShock 1 and Infinite. Actually, I technically own all three of them because they're free on Epic at one point, but, like, I don't know, it's just, yeah. Something, yeah.
in my own face. Huh. I guess it isn't so different after all. I guess the problem's been here since the beginning. What if the thing I'm thinking about right now about a specific game, if I vocalize it, what if there's something I missed? What if I end up looking silly for saying it? What if I don't belong here and it gives me away? To avoid that, everything needs to be perfect. I can't join the discussion if I'm not done yet. I'm not valid until I finish it. I'm not afraid of getting a factoid incorrect or mistaking what showed up in which game. I'm scared of being wrong about how I feel. I think, to an extent, we're all scared of being wrong about how we feel. And I don't think we should be.
That's fair. You know what? That is fair. Yeah, no, the takeaway from this is you don't need to beat that game. You don't need to be part of, I guess, I mean, you can be part of the zeitgeist, but like, you don't really need to beat that game. Like, I've struggled with this before, but I mean, I'll be honest with you, at the rate I'm going at, like, we'll take Tears of the Kingdom, for example. I don't think I'll be able to I won't get done Tears of the Kingdom until maybe the end of the year. Like, I'm not going to be playing through the game. But that whole idea of, you know, especially what he was saying near the end of, what if how I felt about the game is wrong? You should, like, if you're not vibing with a game, you shouldn't have to play through it just because. It's something something I struggle with. I've struggled with for a lot. One of the big examples of this was, what are the games? Games like Dead by Daylight and Overwatch. I used to play them just because I wanted to be liked by my fiance, but she noticed I wasn't enjoying them and actually called me out on it. But no, my buddy of mine recommended me this because from his perspective, when I talk about games, it feels like I'm playing the game because I have to, and I really don't. I think I've mentioned this before. I actually have a poster of it right there. Wind Waker. I've never played Wind Waker. I've never played it. I've played like maybe an hour of it, but I've run into problems where people told me that I'm not playing the game properly because I'm not playing the original version. I played the HD remake, not the original GameCube version. So people have told me I don't get the full experience and things like that. And I kind of, I don't know, made it, I don't know how to word it, honestly. But I don't know. But yeah, no, you don't need to finish games. If you're playing a game, games are meant to be just a fun enjoyment from reality. They're not meant to be a stressful thing. You're meant to be able to enjoy a game, and if you click with a game, play through it till the end. I own a lot. I mean, I have a lot of games, but I don't have a lot of the big popular titles because a lot of them I just don't click with. Like, take Elden Ring, for example. I'm not a huge Souls fan. I don't like it. So I don't like the Souls games. So there's no way in heck I'm ever going to play Elden Ring. And to me, that's perfectly fine. I know a lot of people are like, oh, you can't really call yourself a gamer if you don't play it. You can still call yourself a gamer if you don't play Elden Ring. That is kind of the dumbest take ever to say you're not a real gamer because you don't play Elden Ring. But that will do it for me in today's video. Thank you, everybody, for watching, for hanging out. And I will see you on the next one. Take care, everyone.